Welcome to Mindset Mentoring for Athletes, Families, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. In today's episode, we're exploring the link between parenting, recovery, and the mindset needed to raise emotionally healthy and resilient children. We talk about how unresolved personal struggles in parents often echo through the lives of their kids, and why shifting our own mindset is one of the greatest gifts we can give our families. We'll also touch upon addiction recovery, social anxiety, the quiet daily battles that test our mindset more than any single crisis. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure how to lead your children while still growing yourself, this episode is for you. You'll walk away with wisdom and simple truths that can change the way you see both parenting and personal growth. So stay tuned for that.
Are you ready to elevate your success, whether you're a student, athlete, parent, or entrepreneur? Success Institutes offers transformational programs designed to unlock your full potential in every area of life. With webinars, masterclasses, and mindset training, we provide cutting-edge techniques to help you master your thinking. It's more than just knowledge. It's a life-changing transformation. Instead of paying thousands for a university course, our programs guide you in building the mental, emotional, and physical habits for true success and confidence. Starting with From Stuck to Unstoppable and Unchain Your Potential. We have something for everyone, including tools for families, like our Mindset Transformation Training and 10-Week Habits program. Plus, parents receive our book Confidence for Teens, a new chapter for family, free with just shipping and handling, to help guide their teens through personal growth. And whenever you enroll your family in any of our Mindset of a Champion training packages, you will get our bonus course on winning college scholarships, potentially saving you tens of thousands of dollars. Worried about time, cost, or even willpower? Our programs are designed to fit seamlessly into your life without overwhelming you. We help you prioritize effectively, leveraging the power of synergy and accountability partners to significantly boost follow-through and motivation, ensuring your team stays engaged. And compared to the cost of traditional education, what we offer is life-changing and far more affordable in the long run. If you're asking, will this really work for me? We believe it will. We even offer a satisfaction guarantee if you complete the program and aren't satisfied. Take the next step. Schedule your discovery call today, and let's unlock your full potential together.
Welcome back, and I'm honored to welcome Martha Burich, a seasoned educator, parenting expert, recovery advocate, who has spent decades helping others transform their mindset, starting with herself. With experience as a child psychology professor, special education teacher, addiction recovery mentor, Martha brings practical tools and raw honesty to the conversation. She's also the author of Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children. She's here to remind us that real change starts at home and starts one day at a time. So let's welcome Martha to the show. Welcome.
Hey, I'm absolutely honored to be here. Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely, and it's an honor to have you here. I usually love to just kind of begin real simple and ask my guests to kind of introduce themselves to the audience and let us know kind of who you are, where you came from, how you got to where you're at, and just kind of give us an overview.
Well, really good question. First off, I was an unwanted child, and I knew that from the very beginning. I could feel it as a baby as I look back, and from my mother talking to me. And that's a whole nother story of, I guess, deprivation and everything else in our lives. But I always felt, in addition to that, I always felt that Mom loved my brothers better. So that shaped me in many, many ways, because I didn't know how I was going to compete with my older brother, the genius, and my second older brother, the creative genius. So I went the school route, and I became the good student and got through school. I was the first person in my family to get a college education, and I went beyond and got a master's degree. So you know what? I let that whole idea that Mom loved my brothers better shape me for too long. It helped me in some ways, and you know this, Coach, that a lot of athletes, they say it was that competition between siblings that spurred them to greatness, to really developing their skills and becoming better. And I really think that it helped me in this case. But in too many cases in families, children let it hold them back. You love my brother better. That's why I didn't excel. Blah blah blah. So that's something we want to talk about. And yes, I taught child psychology for 10 years, and I was a high school special education teacher for 16. I have changed the behavior of many a person, including myself and my own son.
Thank you. You had talked, or when I introduced you, I had mentioned that you went to work on yourself as well. Can you talk a little bit about that journey and kind of when you you realized when it kind of dawned on you that, boy, you know what, it really starts here, and how you went about making some of those shifts that you felt you needed to make?
I had such social anxiety, just terrible social anxiety. And I had a therapist when I was very, very young. I think I was 16. I went to see a therapist. And I told my mother about it. And I said, Mom, I'm seeing a therapist. she, she was such a unique individual. She said, people who see therapists should have their heads examined.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but anyway, so I saw the therapist, and the reason I saw him is because my social anxiety was so great. I could barely say hello to people. I was so, I thought I was so less than. I was never good
Mhm.
enough. No matter what I did, it was never good enough. And um, I was always afraid to make any kind of a mistake. And I can remember dropping my pencil in school and being afraid to pick it up because I did not want to be noticed in any way, and certainly not for making such a mistake. So I had to really, really fight this. I remember, 15, 16, um, the therapist telling me, Martha, what are we going to do about this? I want you to practice saying hello to people. And he even said to me, he said, I think if you were any worse, I would put you in the hospital. But you're a good student and you have a job. You've had a job for a long time. I worked at McDonald's, and you go to work every day and you do a good job. So let's, work on these problems on the outside and see if you can get over them.
Yeah, social anxiety is something that I would see quite a bit in the students I worked with, and it can be really debilitating for many people. It sounds like that may have that experience, right? Going through those and being able to connect with that experience on a different level. It, there was a phrase I think you had said that if it's to be, it's up to me, right? That belief, was that part of the recovery process for you? And was that something that somebody suggested here? This is a great mantra kind of thing, or did you kind of just begin to own that? Uh, can you talk a little bit about, because beliefs? That's so much of what I do is trying to build positive beliefs, right, and help people eliminate those that are limiting them. And that I love that phrase, right? If it's to be, it's up to me. Can you talk about how that kind of evolved as part of your whole process of self healing?
Right, definitely. Well, it came from my mother, and she would say that to me. My mother was forced to quit school at eighth grade. Now we're going back here. She was forced to quit school in eighth grade to go to work to make money so my uncles could go to college because my grandparents or my grandfather believed that, a woman didn't need a job, she would get a husband. So that's exactly what happened to my mother. She had an eighth grade education, and it really restricted her life. But she went back. She went to night school. I'm not sure. I think she got a GED or a high school equivalent, but she went to night school when she had children to get this degree, and she became an accountant. Now, one time I remember my mother being very upset because she was denied a promotion, even though she wasn't, she could reconcile to the penny. She knew where every penny of that money was in the company she worked for, but she was denied a promotion because she didn't have a college degree. But anyway, Mom had always told me, Martha, if it is to be, it's up to me. If you want something, you're going to have to go get it. And I got kicked out of two colleges early on for drinking. And because I was so insecure, and drinking was the only way that I could even manage, I think, my life sometimes. And so I was crying to my mother, what am I going to do? They won't let me back in college. And she said, you're going to go right back to that college and ask them to let you in. You ask them what you have to do so you could go back and finish. And that's exactly what I did. I marched right back and said, will you please let me in? And they said, yes, on probation, you're going to have to make a C or above for the next year, which I did. And I went on to excel and get a master's degree and more. In fact, I have a PhD in all but dissertation. So yes, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I really had to decide, Martha, okay, you feel insecure, but you still have to be around people and you have to deal with life. So how are you going to do this? So I would put myself in situations where I had to get over my fears. I would go to parties. I would and just feel it and just figure out how I'm going to work through this. And I remember one time Jack Canfield said, if you feel insecure at a party, look for someone who's alone and go talk to them. You be the change. There are some people who are very socially awkward. They go to the door and they greet everybody. They make themselves useful and they get out of themselves. And that's what I tell people, get out of yourself. My whole problem was total self-centeredness. It's called the bondage of self, Chuck. And that's what I suffered with almost my entire life. The bondage of self. I'm not good enough. They say ego is when you think too much of yourself. No, ego is also when you think too little of yourself, because then you're totally consumed with yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm not that. Nobody likes me. Just ridiculous thoughts that make you useless to the world. You know what? If you really feel that way, why don't you go to the dog pound and go walk some dogs? Be useful. Go to the nursing home. Go ask for the person who has no visitors. Go be useful. And that's what I pretty much determined that I would do and become useful and helpful. And that's why I got into psychology and everything else, because those are useful and helpful professions.
Uh, uh, that's good stuff. There's two things here I want to delve into. First is you kind of talked there about your mom and lack of education, all, and earlier in the introduction of the show, talked about the how some of our unresolved issues as parents can echo through the lives of their children. Have you ever stopped to wonder what those echoes were from from those experiences of your mom and how they factored into um, to your life and the issues that you had to deal with? Can you talk for a moment about what some of those echoes might have been?
Right. Another great question. Well, the whole thing that I was an unwanted child. Well, my mother was an unwanted child. She was a girl, and she came from Italy, and girls were not appreciated, only the boys. So she had that issue to deal with. But in my case, I was an unwanted child because my mother already had two children, and my father drank and gambled all the money away. So we had no money. So that when she realized that I was on the way, she thought, how am I going to feed this child? I already have two that I don't know how I'm going to be able to take care of. So it wasn't so that she didn't want children. It was that the circumstances were very, very difficult. And so I remember her telling me, well, I was such a good baby. I never cried or anything, because I kind of knew in my heart, somewhere in my little baby self, that I needed to be a good baby for her. But anyway, we kind of keep reliving a lot of things. I think most of us really keep reliving high school um, until we get some insight and therapy. But we keep playing the same things. There was a mother on Facebook, and she commented her 3-year-old. She was going to send her 3-year-old to daycare, and this mother was an immigrant, and they ate food that was different than most Americans. And she said, I don't want to send this food with my daughter. I don't want her to be uh, excluded. I don't want the children to think she's different. And I remember thinking right away, wow, we're still living in high school. Mom is reliving through her child, like we all do, her own upbringing and her own fears of being excluded. And Wayne Dyer said to his daughter, when she was very young, said, Billy doesn't like me. And Wayne said to his daughter, he said, honey, Do you like you? If you like you, it doesn't matter what Billy
Yeah.
thinks. It's your opinion of yourself. And and this is pretty much what we're dealing with all around. This whole comparison and social anxiety is nothing more than we're comparing ourselves. And unfortunately, we have no idea what we're really comparing ourselves to. When we're younger, we think, oh, so and so's parents are so cool. Well, you don't really know those parents. You're not in that house 24/7. You have no idea. You hear things, you see some things, but you don't see the whole story. And we're always comparing ourselves, but we don't see the whole picture. So we only see, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. A lot of people think, oh, I wish I had fame. And then you start realizing what the price many people have had to pay for fame. Is it really worth it? Or I wish I had a lot of money. And then you start looking into, when that's your only goal. Or I wish I had a lot of friends. Or I wish this, or I wish I had a different job. Well, for one thing, wishing isn't going to make it true. And for two, are you really sure that's your goal? Maybe you need to do a little bit more research. Maybe what you're looking at isn't truth. And and you know this very much, Chuck. We have to say to ourselves, is that the truth? When I was younger, nobody likes me. Is that the truth? So and so doesn't like me. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I need them. Why not? And what is it that I'm doing? And and in addition to this, when I was in high school, I was a bully. And why was a bully? Nobody bullied me, but I was a bully because I was so insecure. The only way that I could feel halfway normal was to bully others and to act as though I was superior. So there's another psychology lesson.
Yeah. Again, so many good nuggets in there. One of the things I talk about and do with the family component that I offer is have the people go through and begin to try to discover what are those unwritten rules that you operate under that were probably that you picked up just by your family dynamics and the way, you know, the families operated that you grew up in, and begin to try to analyze those. Are they supporting you? Are they helpful? Are they good? Or could there be better ways of doing things and learning to let go of also some of the emotions that can um, come with all that? So, uh, you know, those experiences that you talk about are so important for us to remember and try to step back and step away from and look at from a new perspective. One of the other things you had said in the previous answer, and it kind of echoes through the one you just gave too, is when we talk about the mindset and the change, that by definition really involves becoming uncomfortable. And for us to change, we got to learn to embrace discomfort. And that is hard. We humans, we spend so much effort on trying to lives comfortable, right? It drives so much of what we do that the idea of becoming uncomfortable is not something we want to experience, but yet personal growth, personal change requires it. And you talked about in one of these answers really having to force yourself to do some of these things. Can you talk about how you take that and encourage and work with parents, work with whoever to get through that comfort and learn to try to embrace that? Can you talk about that process?
That's such an excellent question because what's happening now with parents, they're afraid to say no. So they're having these children that are having tantrums that are just going on and on and on every time they hear no. And then the parent tries to appease them. And of course, that never works. So they don't, what's happening is parents are not wanting to suffer through letting their children experience no. I have this parenting philosophy. It's called the 3 L's of parenting. Love your children enough to say no. Children who do not take no for an answer become adults who do not say no to themselves, and they become very unpleasant human beings. And they become alcoholics, drug addicts, felons. They think everything belongs to them. They're shocked when they hear the word no. No, what do you mean no? So we do not do our children any favors by not establishing boundaries and saying, no, no, you can't have that. That's not going to work. And if you want that, you'll have to work for it or whatever it is. But we're finding this entire generation of people who really will not accept no for an answer. And it is not working in society. You're starting to see so many breakdowns of society where nobody seems to care what anybody else, what the needs of anyone else are but their own. Well, I need that. So, well, it's mine. It was laying there, so I'm just going to take it. You left it. I'm just going to take it. Just these whole ideas that, if I want it, I should go get it. And that is not working in society. It's not working for life. And we have to realize I want to be the kind of person that other people want to be around, which doesn't mean I want to be a pushover. I want to be someone who has manners and who realizes that, what, other people are important also. I am not the be all and end all in this world. So learning how to navigate that starts very, very young. And children who are constantly indulged, and we're seeing this more and more and more, don't know how to wait, don't know how to take their turn, don't know how to accept when they fail, and they cause a lot of misery for everyone around them. And parents, in their constant urges to appease the child, oh, well, just stop crying, just stop crying. Here's an ice cream, here's whatever. They're making it worse for themselves and for society. And you know that statement, Chuck, and I know you know this. Strong men create um, good societies. Strong men create easy societies. Easy societies create weak people. Weak people create hard lives and hard societies. And this is exactly what happens. We have to develop our children to be strong. When I was pregnant, I was in college, and a man who already had a child, he said, I'm going to give you a piece of advice right now. Never do for your child what he can do for himself. And he said, that will save you and him so much misery. And that was very good advice, very good advice. And we should all consider that. Stop doing for our children what they can do for themselves. So the first one is, love them enough to say no. And before you say no, think. Think. And if a child asks you for something, you don't have to say yes or no right away. Say, you know what, I need to think about that. I'll tell you the answer tonight. I'll tell you tomorrow. I can't give an answer to that right now. Think. And before you say yes or no, think. And before you say no, say to yourself, okay, if this child has a fit for the next 5 hours, is it still going to be a no? Am I going to stay resolute and steadfast? Because if you don't, it's going to get worse and worse. And you're only going to teach your child to keep whining, keep having a bigger tantrum. And it's going to make life more difficult for you, the child, and society. So love them enough to say no. And then you have to let them fail. Stop trying to help your children win all the time. They need to learn to fail. They need to learn that, what, that's how we excel. And the example, of course, is the first time your child falls down, you're going to say, oh, just stay down there. You're never going to learn to walk. It's by failing that we learn to refine and get better and do better. And we can't live. Who makes the most mistakes in life? People who do the most and who do the most new things and different things. If we don't get out of our comfort zone, we fail by never trying, basically. So if you're always staying where you're comfortable, you're failing. Right there, you're failing because you aren't excelling. And let me give you an example. I walk the dog. And so now I walk the dog, and now the weather's been good. So every day I challenge myself to go a little farther. So, at the beginning, it was just 4,000 steps we would go. Well, now I walk the dog, we go 10,000 steps. Well, I don't go just 10,000. We get to 10,000, I say, well, you need to go an extra 100, 200 steps. So each time I go a little bit farther. And let's see, now I'm up to 15,000 steps. But, it's push a little more, one more rep, a little more. How much longer can you stay calm? Stay calm. This is upsetting, but can you stay calm? Yes. How are you going to stay calm? What do you have to do to stay calm? And so love them enough to say no. Let them fail. And the last, lead by example. You cannot change a child's behavior by yelling and screaming and telling them what they do wrong all the time. That only makes things worse, and they take you out of their quality lives. You lead by example. You know what, sweetheart? I'm really aggravated right now about what's happened, so I need to calm down. So you know what? We'll talk about this later when we're both calm. And if you can't control your emotions, go to your room, get by yourself, and 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 get yourself calmed down. And you know, and what do you say to yourself? Okay, this is aggravating, this is annoying. Is it the worst thing that could happen? You know, one day I had a flat tire, and it happened in my driveway.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, what a blessing. What a blessing. Yeah, a flat tire is aggravating, but it didn't happen in the middle of the highway, which has happened to me before. So we have to learn to put things in perspective and stop thinking that every little setback or annoyance is somehow, oh my goodness, this is so terrible. What am I going to do about it? We have to grow up. So many of us are big children. And me, you know, at my age, I still am a big baby sometimes. But in my wisdom, I've learned that just because I'm annoyed, nobody else has to suffer. I keep it to myself, mind my business, keep my big mouth shut, keep my opinion to myself, and go on with my day and let others have a good day.
Yeah. You know, when you was just talking a moment ago about um, failure, and in schools, there's been, I could be opening a big can of worms here as we go into this, but you know, the idea that began to come around schools without failure from a conceptual standpoint, it was about, you know, you want to bring everybody up and keep giving them opportunities to meet minimum standards. You don't want them not to meet those standards. So you keep working with them until they get there. That's kind of the conceptual thing. And in my experiences, I'm afraid that so much of it became trying to remove the possibility of negative feelings about, oh, I just failed, blah blah blah, give up. That you you're missing the opportunity for kids to learn through failure, which teaches us so much. And I would love, as an educator, I would love to hear what your experiences were, whether you felt that same thing, that we've done too much to remove or think that we can remove stress and think that we can remove the whole concept of failure, that we aren't doing what you just said. We aren't teaching young people how to learn from those setbacks and move forward. We're just trying to protect them from it ever happening, which is it's not, you can't do that. So can you talk to see, I mean, are your experiences similar to mine in that concept? And what do you think schools could do or should do to both balance that idea that we want everybody to kind of meet these standards, and we'll do everything in our power to try to get you there, but that doesn't mean there's no quote failure along the way. Uh, you want to tackle that subject?
Personally, I think school is a stress factory. No matter what you do at school, you're never good enough. You're never smart enough. You're never pretty enough. You're never thin enough. You're never dressed right. It doesn't matter. You're never rich enough. It doesn't matter. School is a gigantic stress factory. And a lot of my students, you know, especially in special ed, they always feel less than while I'm in special ed. And they get teased for it too. So that causes a problem right there. And I had one student that, you know, I couldn't correct him. You know, I would say, you know, sweetheart, maybe it would be better. Why don't you try this? And just to say that would throw him just, you know, because his self esteem was so low, any little perceived mistake, just he couldn't handle it. He absolutely couldn't handle it. And this is kind of partly what we're dealing with students. And in these days, if your child is smart and can do the work, there's nobody there to help them because the teacher is too busy trying to help students who don't have a background, who nobody read to when they were younger, who don't even understand, you know, how to sound out letters and to read words. And we're talking about reading. When you get to math, it's 10 times worse. And so, yes, school is just a factory of insecurity and fear. I'm on top today, but so and so's catching up to me. I mean, it's just no matter what you do, it's never good enough. And I remember my son was in, I think it was eighth grade, and he was really, really, really good at math. And he came home to me one day and he said, Mom, tell my math teacher to stop telling all the kids how smart I am and to be like me because they're picking on me and bullying me terribly. I'm really getting picked on. And I did. I said to the teacher, please stop singling Anthony out for being so smart. It's causing him distress. So, these days, whether you're the smart kid, the quote unquote dumb kid, um, everybody seems to be suffering equally with, doesn't matter how good you are, it's not good enough, doesn't, you're too good. School is a very, very, very strange place to try to navigate. And kids today, even, they never feel they belong, they're accepted, and not all of them, many of them, are not in the right group, whatever. It's just a hotbed of frustration and aggravation. And really, it amazes me that anybody can learn anything at school because they're so concerned about their image and what people think of them. And am I wearing the right thing? And am I doing the right thing? And as I talked about before, fear to drop a pencil, didn't want to be noticed for anything. And so, yes, it's very, very challenging. And teachers have an almost impossible job. If you can't control your child at home, how am I supposed to control your child in a room of 30? And you expect me to control your child in a room of 30? And I want to tell you a story. He wasn't my student. He was in another science class, ninth grade. And I went into the science teacher's room, and this student was just making mincemeat of that class. Just, he was Mr. Funny and wanted all the attention and not paying attention, not doing his work. So I went to the football coach because I knew he played football, and I said, Coach, here's what I saw in this classroom. I hope you're going to help us with this. And he did. He benched the kid, and he said, you know what? This had better not happen again because you're not playing football until I see that you're doing the right thing in that classroom. Well, the very next day, who was at the school before I got there? The parents, to tell me to mind my own business. And I told the mother, I said, ma'am, it is my business. Your child's education and learning and the education of the other children in his classes are my business. The school is a place for learning. We're preparing people to go out into the world to start their own businesses, to have jobs, to be good citizens. That's my job.
Yeah. We could we could really go on and on about education, but I think it's important to talk about it because what you just said about special ed, I also worked for years in special ed, and I was working primarily with middle school students, and even in my latter years where it was an alternative program, I had a number of special ed students, a fairly high percentage, but not entirely. So it wasn't just special ed students who got these low self-esteem, all these beliefs about negative beliefs about who they were, about their ability to learn, about their ability to build friends, to fit in, all these things that so by the time they're reaching adolescence, when things really begin to make that even more, challenging for them, they they already had established these limiting beliefs. So it's beginning in elementary school. And one of the districts I had worked in while I was there, while I started there, had got this, the funding to build a brand new elementary school to combine the other elementary schools all on one building. And everybody was so excited. All the schools were going to be right on one campus. We easily walk from one school to the other, and how wonderful all that would be. And it was a beautiful building, beautiful school, all the modern bells and whistles. But for years now, they've had a real challenge trying to figure out how to build schools within schools because it's so big. These young children are struggling so much emotionally that behaviors have increased, anxiety, all these things. And, personally, and even look at some of the data, this move, especially at elementary school level, to consolidate and get bigger schools has really done a lot from an emotional standpoint on young children in particular. It makes it even harder for some of these outliers to fit in, to build those relationships that they need so desperately. And I really believe that it is causing greater problems, and we have forgotten the original concept of like these neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood elementary school. There's a bunch of them, right? And um, I loved the school, but it it was a fairly big one for our community. But compared to the modern elementary schools, it wasn't that big at all. Um, do you want to talk about that at all? Do you agree? Do you think that some of those issues that we're talking about, if we could if we could address those mindset issues early on and really kind of focus on building those positive beliefs and self-image and interrupting those negative patterns, building those positive relationships, that by the time they got to middle or high school, they'd be much better prepared for dealing with the stressors that come them. And I'm not saying it would take them away. I'm saying they'd be better able to deal with them. Your thoughts on that little thesis of mine?
Well, that's a really good point, Chuck, because we're seeing depersonalization. Everyone's become just a cog in the wheel. And where's my place in the world? Um, now with screens, with phones, everybody's got a phone, uh, gaming and everything else. You're seeing people more and more disconnecting with others and uh, stuck in their own little cyber world. And we're talking parents, students. One little girl said, "I wish my mother looked at me the way she looks at her phone." One little girl threw her mother's phone out and showing, how, wait a minute, pay attention to me. What about me? So yes, we're getting into some really with technology, it's becoming more and more difficult for people to feel unique and to feel that they belong. Where do I belong? What's my purpose? What am I here for? Yeah, that's a really, really, really big deal. And we have to go back to, what do you think of yourself? And it's so hard when you're younger. I mean, when you're younger, you're learning how to navigate life, and you are comparing yourself to others. Yeah, what else can you do as a youngster, as a little one? But then as you get older, you have to start thinking, well, you know, who am I? Where am I? Where am I going? What do I want to do? What's really important? And whose opinion really matters? And it took me a long, long time to think, whose opinion's the right opinion, and because I didn't trust my own. And you'll see that a lot in recovery when you have people with alcohol and drug addiction, and they're just starting on the journey of not using those things to mask their emotions, to deal with life, to handle things. And then they're like, well, whose opinion is, what's the right opinion? What's the right thing to do? And in a lot of cases, when people first come in AA and programs like that, their sponsor will say, well, you know what, before you do anything, talk to me, because you're up to now, you haven't made really good choices. So we need to discuss things before you make any big decisions or anything, because your thinking isn't right yet. You don't really understand what's happening and what your real choices are. And there was one example. One fella gave an open talk. It was a young guy, and he had been lived on the street a lot, so he was basically a con man. And when he stopped, when he realized his life just was not working, he came into AA and he got a sponsor. And he was talking to a sponsor one day, and he said, well, I'm a good guy. And his sponsor said, no, you're not. You are not a good person. You're a con man. You use people. you don't understand. Yes, you've had to do it to survive, but we need to get you out of that mindset. And so a lot of and stuck in the bondage of self, not realizing how our behaviors affect others. So yes, from a young age, we need to understand. We need to learn empathy. We need to realize that the world does not revolve around me. As the world turns, the world doesn't turn for me. I have to learn how to deal with frustration, aggravation, annoyance. And Chuck, people don't seem to realize that is the daily condition. The daily condition is most things are not going to go your way. They're going to be little frustrations. Oh my goodness. I just washed the dishes. I have to do them again. My goodness, I just cleaned. It has to be cleaned again. Oh my goodness, the baby's diaper has to be changed again. Oh dear, now I have to cook another meal. It's constant. You have to do and do and do and do. Nothing is good enough because everything still has to be done. And there's no, I've arrived. Oh, I wrote a book. Now I'm done. Duh. That's every time you climb the mountain a little bit. Guess what? There's more to do. There's always more to do. So if we get this mindset like, oh well, I've graduated high school now, I'm done. Duh. Then there comes, you're going to start a job or start a business. Are you going to go to college? Are you going to become a tradesman? What's next? What's your next thing? And it's always, it pretty much is, what's next? What's next? Okay, I did this. I baked this cake, but then now what? Now what do I do? Yeah, that's pretty much life. And until we understand that nothing's ever done, you're always on the journey. We're going to be constantly aggravated and frustrated.
Yeah. I um, there's a few more questions I answer. I'm just kind of looking at the clock as well. In that you had mentioned social media in your answer there, and it got me thinking again because there's I not too long ago read the book The Anxiety Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and he has a whole lot of research, and I try to keep up with some of the research that he keeps putting out about social media and its impact on mindset and relationships and family, all of all of it. And it's he even is making the argument now that especially with young women, teenage girls, that there's a causative relationship between social media and anxiety and depression, not just correlative, which is fascinating. And I think I agree with him. Looking at the research, his arguments are pretty strong. In and I know you've alluded to some of the things that you talk about in your book. Can you now talk about some of these issues that modern parents have? Social media, these the beliefs that we want to try to instill in them, and maybe more directly or specifically, talk about what that advice is in your book on what parents can do, and things technology changes so fast now, which is having a greater impact on as parents trying to stay up with everything, and what do I do about it? Are there some principles, guiding principles, keynotes of wisdom? Can you kind of more pointedly kind of talk about some of those specific issues? And again, I know you kind of alluded to some of those in some of your other answers, but uh, maybe more directly talk about what that advice is you give parents.
Yeah, that's another really good question because what's happening is parents are becoming so disgusted with their children being on social media all the time, being up till 3, 4 in the morning on social media on their phones, and then they won't get up for school the next day. To where parents are throwing games in the trash, destroying their children's devices. Well, that's not going to help. You need to have a discussion. You need to sit down and say, okay, I'm seeing some problems here. What are you seeing? And a lot of times, if you have a real heart to heart with your child, they'll admit, well, yeah, I notice I'm on the phone a lot, or I'm using the social media too much, and it is affecting other things. So let's come up with a plan, for both of us, because even I know better. I find myself, scrolling Facebook or wherever else, Instagram, whatever, a little bit too much, and So have a real conversation and make sure everybody's calm when you talk about it and say, let's make a plan. Let's see if we can do this. Let's work on a schedule. Let's make a schedule. And also, never let your children alone with their devices, which means they cannot go into their bedroom by themselves with the door closed. You need to know who's on the other end of that phone at all times, who's in the games they play. You need to know all of that because so much is going on in our society, and children are becoming victims, especially children of single parent families. So you really need to make sure that your child is not, engaging in inappropriate things on the internet. And I'll tell you something else. I will be on, Instagram or Facebook, and just inappropriate images pop up on my phone all the time. And even though I report it out of nowhere from reels and whatnot, and I don't look at any of that kind of stuff. Yet, some of these things that are two steps from pornography are appearing on my phone. And why? Why? So imagine what's coming up on your child's phone. So be sure that you monitor everything and that you have parental um, control devices on everything. Watch your own intake. Be a good example. Always be a good example. And here's one thing: don't tell your child if you do this, then no. As soon as your chores are done, you may use your phone for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. And make everything as soon as when your chores are done, as soon as then you can. As soon as you're dressed, then we'll have breakfast. As soon as uh, don't say if is a bribe, and stop promising your children things for behaving. You know what? They're part of the family. You're part of this family, and part of the family is to act right and to help the family um, work together to be successful. Family is the basis of society. A happy family causes a happy society. Let's make a happy family that works well. We want to help each other to get things done. Let's all work together to help each other to get things done. So, what's your contribution to the family? Your contribution is you take the garbage out every Thursday. And if I have to take the garbage out for you, then you have to pay me because that's how the world works. If you don't do your job, somebody has to do it, right? And they get paid. But um, this can't be an everyday thing. That is your job. And if you don't want it to be your job, we have to talk about it. You'll have to take on a different job. But we need to have these conversations uh, because otherwise, and we need to tell children what we're thinking. When you do that, I think to myself, oh my goodness, I don't think my child likes me. He just, or she just left all this stuff laying out and didn't pick up anything. And they know how important it is for me to have things picked up. That's what I'm thinking. Is that why you did it? Have those conversations. So that and when you do things, when you're washing the dishes, say, wow, it really makes me feel good when I wash the dishes and everything's nice and clean. I love to come into the kitchen. I love to leave things the way I left them, and that's why we have that rule. Leave things the way you found them. So when you're done cooking and cleaning and eating, clean it all up before you leave the kitchen. Don't leave a mess for someone else. And constantly tell children what you're thinking and why you do things. Oh, I did this because of this. I did this because of this. And then sometimes the child will say, well, that's dumb. Why, that's dumb. Yes, maybe it is dumb. Do you have another way I could do it? Can you think of another way? Have discussions. It's not always I'm right and you're wrong. Well, that's very interesting. Yes, maybe it is silly why I did that. Well, my mom used to do it that way. That's why I do it. And it works for me. You have a better idea, so, and don't make the better idea just leaving everything laying around. That won't work. Work for anybody. Won't work for anybody. So yeah, so in the book, it's as soon as this is done, then you can, and have these discussions. I have a chapter in the book how to keep your marriage together, and that is, you have to have time for your spouse and for the marriage. And children are going to grow up and leave, and hopefully you and your spouse will be there together and maintaining that relationship. So, the marital relationship is very important to preserve and to maintain. And the other thing I really want parents to know, Mom and dad do not have to have the same opinion about everything. You don't have to agree on everything. The really big stuff, yes, of course, there should never be any abuse. Never say negative things to your children, calling them names or teasing them that hurts them. But if dad has a different way to do things or to discipline, well, okay, then we think differently. Children figure that out real quick, and mom and dad will figure out real quick too which parent is the soft one and which one's not. But moms and dads are different. Luckily, thankfully, that's the way of the world, hopefully, and we want them to be different. If everybody was the same, we might as well all be raised by robots. No thanks.
Yeah. There's a couple points I just want to bring up um, from what you said there. One of the things that popped in my mind, and I think it's when we first, I'd mentioned the social media thing, and uh, you said don't let them alone, right, with the media and all. And there's a commercial I've been seeing recently, and I don't even know really exactly what the commercial. It's a company that's supposed to help parents help protect their kids online, and they talk about the rise of anxiety, depression in the commercial, and linking it to the devices, and that whatever this product is supposed to help with that. But the images they show are kids at night on their devices in their bedrooms. And I'm thinking, step one, you don't even need to buy some product. Don't let them have their device at night in their room. Like, there's step one, no product needed. And
Right.
I kind of chuckled that a little bit, but I had a number of students towards the end of my career who would be on, they had trouble staying awake in school because they were up so late gaming and other things on their devices. And
Right.
during COVID, when we were doing classes and things via Zoom, many kids wouldn't necessarily show up, but when they did, you kind of got a peek at their setup. And there were a couple of them that had like their bedrooms were, and I worked in an affluent community at this time. Like, that's where they were. I mean, that their bedrooms were nice with nice setups, electronics, gaming, like, so they'd come home and that's where they would go. And the other point I wanted to make that's related to that too, and I talk a lot about the importance of individual rituals in people's lives and how important they are to establish. And then I suggest, particularly with families, some family rituals.
Right.
And one of those that I think has become lost to a certain extent, and again, I think it's more from at least the population that I dealt with, which were outliers, and I'll admit that, but it's family mealtime in these conversations that you were just talking about, which could happen at family mealtime, and even just little things at young ages that you can begin to pick up from your own children. Like, I love telling this story because it makes me smile every time I think about it. But when my kids were young, and I have four children. At one time, I had four children under the age of four, but this was before our youngest was born, and my wife was still coaching. And I would take the twins. We had twins, and my oldest son to their track meets, cross country meet. Get home, and my wife would get home. Maybe probably about 20 minutes or so after we got home, and I would get the kids in their high chair, start getting the meal ready and all. And so my oldest at the time was a little over three, but just, and again, that age, I don't remember for sure, but I'm just talking with him, a little kid, and like, what's this? Chin, what's this? Ear, cheek, nose, eye. And I point to my forehead, and he looks at me, says, two head, and he smiles. And I'm like, you just told a joke, didn't you? And he's just smiling. And I'm like, wow. That moment, my wife comes in, and I said, honey, this is Charles, and go through the thing again. And I finally point to my forehead. He says, forehead. And he's smiling again. And I'm looking at him going, my good, you're telling jokes and now you're hanging me out to dry with my wife. And he has like a sense of humor. Like he jokes around all the time. But those little moments, a dinner time thing, you can begin to learn a lot about your kids. You can deal with these important topics. Later on, when my youngest was in elementary school, he asked, why do people get divorced? Because one of his good friends' parents were getting divorced. And it's like, wow, all right. And, but those conversations were powerful. And I'm afraid, at least with my experience with some of those outlying populations, those things aren't happening. Those conversations you talked about aren't happening. So that's kind of my ending little like soapbox thing. Do you have any final points or comments or anything you want to make? We've got, your QR codes and stuff on in your background, which are great, so people would be able to kind of get in touch with you. Is there any final parting thoughts that you want to share with my audience? No, nothing you want to share. No final thoughts. And I'm not sure if I lost you or not. Well,
Well, you know what, parents, one day at a time. It's all going to work out. Just do your today. Do your best today. Get as much information as you can, and one day at a time. It's all going to work out. Just do what you can today. And you know what Chuck just said, no devices at the table. Why don't you have a nice family meal, no devices, and don't bring up any bad behavior when you're eating. Only talk about pleasant things. And when you want to discuss bad behavior, make a special arrangement for that. All righty, and that's pretty much it. My book you can get at Amazon. It has 5-star reviews. And join my Facebook group, Mastering Child Behavior. Lots of good information there.
awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll also make sure that we put that in the description for the show and all. And as always, thank you everybody for tuning in. Really some good advice here for all you parents out there. And as I've been doing quite a bit of late, anybody who really wants to delve in more of this, try to really investigate for themselves their own mindset, how they can maybe deal with their family situation. I am offering for those who are listening my strategy sessions, which I usually charge $350 for an hour session. In that, we really delve into this. I give you some initial uh, kind of feedback on where your mindset's at, your ability to manage stress, and we take that information, strategize some more about your goals, what you're really seeking, and at the end of that, I kind of give you a strategy. Here's what you can do. I offer some programs. I offer this that could help. Otherwise, there's some of these things, some of these steps that you can implement yourself. So I offer that to all of you, free of charge, you know, no fee. All you got to do is go to coachchuck360.com, and there's a contact me section, and you would just send me a text with first name, last name, best email, and I'll send you a unique calendar link where we can schedule that and you won't have to pay for it at all. And it will at least give you a good starting point and a place that, with some really good steps for taking a look at where your own mindset is. And as Martha had said, your mindset and the things that you carry with you do echo through the lives of your children as well. So uh, it's well worth kind of at least finding out where you're at with all of that. And until the next time, I encourage you to go out there and live life to its fullest. And I'll see you in the next episode.